Hi again, and welcome to Your Amazing Edge podcast, Spicy Friday edition, where nothing is taboo and nothing is off limits. We're here to help you and untangle your relationship issues, refresh, reconnect, and spice up your time together. You still can do that, even though some of you think you can't. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Zev Halpern on the East Coast.
And I am Sam Polyakov on the West Coast, and we are coast to coast, nationwide, and even worldwide. So please tune in.
We're talking about relationships, the raw and pure, that drives our relationship forward and backwards. I think some of us know what that is. It confuses us and makes us crazy sometimes. We're digging into the topics you've told us you want to hear about.
And we really value your point of view here. That's one of the main reasons we do this podcast. So please drop us a comment. You can catch us on the DMs on LinkedIn. You can catch us on our website at youramazingedge.com. And you can even email us, Zev at youramazingedge.com, Sarah at youramazingedge.com. Thank you.
We're talking about how to draw a line in the sand, not putting up with the same old, you know what, same old, same old. And so chillax, open your hearts and minds, and consider some other options. It's always good to get out of that narrow view that we get when we're in relationships. Some of us in the short haul, and some of us in the
And the
long.
long,
That's right.
right.
The long haul relationships, which, hey, they're challenging. They're
It's like
challenging.
long trucking.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
It
like
really is.
a West Coast turnaround on steroids, is what it
Oh,
is,
yeah, with no sleep, right?
right? So it's no surprise relationships get dicey. Does your relationship get dicey out there? I'm sure it does.
All
Uh,
relationships get dicey out there if you're in one for long enough.
and you have disagreements. There's stress and money, and sometimes in-laws, and
In-laws.
despair. People aren't getting or doing, or life isn't happening the way they want it to happen. You fight, you throw up your hands, you say things that you definitely will regret later. I think many of us have done that before. That's a wicked lesson to learn. And the spiral continues boom, downward, and you feel like you're just like existing roommates coexisting. You're not certainly not cohabitating, you're coexisting.
And I've
And
even heard like some women say, "Hey, where's the Disney movie? You know, in The Little Mermaid, she finds her legs and she finds her prince. Where's my prince?"
I
So
mean,
there's kind of that programming, any kind of social programming that we see in movies or TV or popular books. We might set our expectations against those. And when it spirals downward, then what?
well, the truth is that people, they put on airs, and you think that their relationships are just top shelf and everything's going well. We have no idea. I'll say that time and time again because people say it to me. Have no idea what's going on behind that door, and it could look Hollywood on the outside, and on the inside, it could be knocked down, drag out craziness.
It
And
could
and
be.
and I know in America that the stress of America today, and there's a lot of it coming from all directions. Political, financial. I mean, today people they're crazy. People have like today they've lost their mind because they've lost some money,
Yes.
and that will put stress on a relationship, or just send people into the doldrums. So you have choices. You can do nothing. You can, which is of course the path of least resistance. I don't. I understand perfectly why you would do that because, you don't want to rock the boat and you don't want to lift up the rock because you don't want that snake, to come out from under the rock and bite the crap out of you. It's kind of a self-survival thing. But the pile of what, but I can say it. This is a podcast. The pile of shit in
Yeah.
your relationship just keeps piling up and piling up. And I don't know about you, but like when there's a pile in front of me, it's hard for me to see what's on the other side.
Yeah.
Let alone hear what's on. I mean, I might hear, but I don't see it. So what do you do? I mean, what do you do when it gets like this? And a funny question is, wouldn't you like to know? People have asked me that. Wouldn't you like to know? Well, the answer is, and the answer will always be, do something.
Do
Do
something.
something. Don't do nothing. But it's perfectly understandable, especially if you're at risk. If you're at risk that you say something in your relationship and something might get hurled at you, or you might just take some psychological abuse that truthfully you just don't need, then maybe that's not the right time.
Yeah.
But what we're here to do today is to try to get you, give you a few things that you can do to make it happen, because this is it always comes down to there's got to be a conversation. We're not telepathic, and again, thank goodness we're not, because I'm not so sure we would all survive that, especially nowadays. With the way the people are polarized in epic ways that they've never been polarized before. But what you need to do is someone needs to get the ball rolling. There's two of you. Um, if somebody doesn't take the ball and lift it up, even though it might be pretty heavy, and it's the hard lift, it's the heavy lift, not so easy, but you have to figure out what's acceptable and what's not. Draw a line in the sand and step over it together. Oh, that sounds real easy, Zev. Thanks a lot. Why don't you take the stick and that you're going to draw a line in the sand, because I've tried to do that before and it hasn't worked. And, well, there are ways to do this. And let me suggest one to you, and that is, do you like invitations? Hey, Sarah, do you like being invited to things? I mean,
Everybody loves being invited. Absolutely.
what's it feel like?
Well, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel special. And I think everybody likes to feel special in some way. People like to know that others are thinking about them.
So invite your spouse to join you in drawing a line in the sand and step over it together. Well, that sounds all wonderful and lovely and, ride into the sunset. I'm not talking about riding into any sunset, but I'm talking about, it's time for a change, unless you prefer living, in the same old with the pile in front of you. That's your choice. And many people take that choice, and unfortunately, they grin and bear it, but it has its toll. People get angry, things come outside, right out of the side of your neck. You don't even realize it. Yeah, you're angry, and even something that wouldn't cause you to, to act out or to be, well, wow, that was, what's going on with him? What's going on with her? Well, something at home. People walk into work every day angry. They walk, they came home and they got angry, and they went out to work and they walk into work angry, and pissed off. And believe me, they take it out on people, or they take it out on their work, or they take it out on something. God help their dog.
God help their dog. That's right, because it's the old kick the dog principle. If you can't kick your boss, you come home and you kick the dog. Nobody wants to kick the dog. I mean, look at the sweet dogs behind me, who are probably some of the biggest fans of this podcast.
Mhm.
So, right?
Yeah, well, I always like looking at them. So
Yeah. Reuben and Barkley, the R&B brothers are their names.
the The dog snores.
The dog snorers, yes, they're always there for the snoring. So Zev, I have a question, like a real life experience of a couple putting that line in the sand and stepping over it. We have like a real life scenario. Should we choose like in-laws, or what's a common marriage problem?
I think that there's just so many, and there's also unique problems. There's people that have very unique, family situations. But ultimately, if something upsets you, the holidays coming up, and they want to be with their family, and you don't want to be there. You envision another holiday, you envision another opportunity, or the bills pile up, and you're really just yelling because you're stressed about money. You're stressed about a lot of things. But the important thing is that instead of the usual, which is screaming and yelling, or grudging and walking away and not facing up to this, better bring something up by invitation. Honey, I know that things have been very stressful, and things have been stressful for you at work and things, but why don't we, take a walk, sit down, go sit somewhere, go somewhere other than the house, because a lot of times when you're in your own house, you retreat. There are places that you retreat to because, your home should be safe and you should feel safe in your house. And when there's a threat, people retreat to safety. And it's better, it's just better to try to do this together. The usual thing that happens is that at some point the pressure cooker just builds and builds and builds, and boom, it flies off. And a lot of times it flies off on a Friday. We try to do this on a Friday because we want you to go into your weekend with some constructive ideas. And if you're out there, let us know what might be a constructive thing you do, or just let us know the frustration, and ask us what do I do about this. It's always the same thing. I bring something up. I even say, on my third word, they turn around and walk away. They don't want to hear it.
That's a tough one, right? If they're stonewalling you like that, if you can't even speak and they're already walking away, that's a tough situation.
Because it basically it creates a conditioned response, and the conditioned response is, I'm not going to open my mouth. I'm not going to say anything constructive, because even if I said the sweet nothing in your ear, or I said wonderful thing, you turn it into a crap pile, because that's just the way you guys are feeling. Something needs to be rearranged. You have to, you keep on doing the same thing. The same thing is going to keep happening, and that's why it's always important in everything in life. And I'm guilty of it as well, is to just start, do something, get something going, get it off your mind. Even send an invitation. If you feel like you can't just approach, hey, it's the weekend, you got to bother me with that, that. I just got the weekend. I just worked 5 days. My boss is a big asshole. I can't stand it. And now I got to deal with you. What do I need this for? Boom. Goes
And it
right.
is that easy.
And that's it. Retreat to the book, retreat to TV, retreat to whatever, go play golf. Look, everybody should have, leisure time and all that. However, when this is going on, people need to have the convo. You got to get this conversation rolling in some kind of way, shape, or form. I mean, like I said, right here in this office, I have people rocking, the place, because they're just so angry. And, they come, unfortunately, when it's late, and they've already just accumulated such bad points with each other that, the points really, they're just kind of like crap points. They're not, there's nothing good. And they look to me and they go, hey, Zev, solve our problem. They start to yell at each other, and I'm like, I don't have a whistle. I don't have a striped shirt. And I tell them straight up, I'm not your referee. I'm not going to be your referee. I need to offer you some opportunities, to talk with each other. And talking with each other, means listening to each other, as hard as that is, because it just is. It's just hard to listen to complaints, especially when, the world around you is stressful enough. And, you can just, oh, I'm going to go home tonight. I'm just going to watch TV. I'm not going to do anything. And then you come home and the spouse you have is so angry for the weeks that you haven't dealt with them that, guess what? You just walked into a blow up that you didn't even know was going to happen, because we have limitations. We can only take so much. And don't you like attention, Sarah? Don't you like getting attention? Don't you like having nice attention?
Oh, everybody loves having positive attention. And when we're talking about couples, I think about the emotional bank account. Sometimes people come into the therapist's office when they have a negative balance in their emotional bank account. And one of the ways you can fill it up is by giving positive attention to your spouse, even if it's not reciprocated. You're still putting a positive balance in their bank account, their emotional bank account.
And it compounds daily.
It does.
It compounds if you do that, but the opposite is true also. And you're up against kind of weeks and months and maybe years of letting the stuff pile up to the point where, okay, well, we have nothing left. And
Yeah.
you feel like you have nothing left because you haven't really listened to what, you could be. The most important thing I've learned over the past years is don't do it all. Just do some. Just do 10%. Increase your relationship attention by 10%. How about 5%?
Any,
And
any which is better than nothing.
they'll be they'll feel it, they'll hear it, they'll notice it. If you all of a sudden, instead of the usual, walked in, gave your spouse a big giant hug, even though you don't feel like it, and maybe rub their back a little, and then turn that hug into a little more, than just a regular little, hug. Maybe let your fingers roam, a bit. Let them know that you care about them. That says something. You don't have to open. You have to say one damn thing. You can let your fingers do the walking. You can let your you can do that. And when all of a sudden you feel somebody rubbing your back in a nice way or reaching, a little lower, you might not be interested in what they might be interested in. And you can certainly tell them you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But guaranteed, if you increase your attention to the person, that already is going to change the climate inside your relationship so much. And some of that horrible, the bad climate that's going on will start to, open the window and let it fly. Let that stale, terrible interchange that you haven't had. You haven't had an exchange. You wonder, why is our relationship so crappy? I said, well, maybe it's crappy because you haven't invested anything, in it. And maybe that's not your fault either. Maybe you're just, turned off to the nth degree. But you got to say something. I'm turned off to the nth degree. I can't
Yes.
take this anymore. I can't take, when you do this. I don't like when you don't say constructive things and you criticize me. What does it do for me? All it does is make me feel this small. I don't feel, like you love me. I don't feel like you care about me. This sucks and I don't need it. And, go pound sand in your ass. I mean, seriously, people get angry.
They do indeed.
There's a certain thing about saying something constructive. At least you did it. At least you put it out there. You sent it out into the world. Did it land? Maybe, but at least you got it out of your system, because it is doing nothing but hurting you inside. And I'm telling you, it's pounding at you inside. It's like a hammer smashing around your inner self. smashing your good feelings. You wonder, why am I so negative? How come I'm feeling so crappy? Because you've been angry for weeks, maybe months.
Maybe
Yeah.
years. Maybe years. Yeah.
And maybe you have a damn good reason to be angry. But the truth is, and I tell most couples when I talk to them, is that but in a relationship where there are issues and where there's stress and things like that, usually there's culpability on both parts. I'm not saying somebody's to blame. I'm using the word culpable. Culpability is not blame. Culpability means you have some responsibility in whether you responded, to constructive things, or whether you're indifferent. You can be culpable in a lot of different ways. You can spend too much time on your phone. You can talk to other people, and then they hear you talking to other people, and they say to themselves, "What? Why are you talking to other people? Why are you on the phone talking to your girlfriends, or whatever, all the time? Well, how come you're not talking to me?" Well, I'm not talking to you, because when I do, all I get, is like a storm, and you know which kind,
Yeah.
of your anger,
And how do relationships even get to this point? It's kind of like a slow drip. Do you feel like it's a slow drip?
I mean, I think relationships get this way because they can. Because there's room inside of relationships. People, you wouldn't say the same thing to your boss or strangers that you might say to your spouse, which is kind of not kind of terrible, but it's the truth. Our spouses are low risk um, people, beings. They're low risk. You're pretty much, you're gonna say things and get away with it. You'd never get away with it at work. You never get away with it with certain people in your life. You've learned to kind of just like, this is what I do. And if you take that, if somebody says psychologically abusive things to you and you take it, there's your culpability. I mean, you've made a choice to be, the receptacle of somebody else's stuff.
And what happens when somebody's caught in a psychologically abusive relationship? Like, let's say it's a stay at home mom and she's caught in a psychologically abusive relationship. What leverage does she have?
I'll give you some, and I've made this suggestion before, and that is, let's say that you're listening to this podcast and you're like, "Oh, these people are talking about other people because this can never be me. I'm stuck here. I'm at home. He goes out to work or she goes out to whatever." And here's what you can do: decide to yourself that you're going to do something for yourself. I'm going to take a course. I'm going to set a time to go out with some friends. I'm going to do something on a regular basis. And then one day, just make the announcement. Hey, guess what? I signed up for a class. I'm taking this class that I wanted to take, and it's going to be Wednesday nights. There's nothing going on. Basically, you've been watching TV anyway, and send that message across the bow. Load the cannon, not in a negative way. Just make sure that you assert yourself because you've decided that you're going to do something for yourself. And because you can't get anywhere, it's like your relationship's in a stuck point. Nothing's nothing's going on. That breaks the stuck point. Trust me, when you start leaving, hey, where are you going?
Exactly.
Remember I got this class? You know, that's something that you can do to change the course of a relationship. But I think, and most importantly, it changes the posture of you. And it basically helps you set a posture and a positive tone so that you can think of yourself, in a good positive light.
And one thing that you can do is, and this is, I know that sometimes when you stay at home and you have no income and you're raising children, another thing that you can do in the moment, let's say that you're being attacked emotionally, and you're going to the brink, you can simply get yourself in the car along with your kids and you can take a drive. So if somebody is being very abusive to you emotionally, you can help yourself to your children, literally get in the car and take a drive for half an hour, because that's you taking your power back. And that's you also teaching that person that when they act in ways that are truly unacceptable, because it is unacceptable to psychologically abuse somebody, that the repercussion is you drive away. You're not there to listen any longer.
And optimally, I mean, the best thing to do is, I mean, let's set the stage. You invite them to talk about one particular thing, not 100 things, not 20 things, one particular thing that if it changed or it moved the needle a little bit, it would make your life a lot easier and a lot happier, and then be reciprocal. Invite them to share something that they'd like to see, and it might not be acceptable to you. You know, I mean, God knows it could be something. You know, you're not feeling very sexual, or you're not feeling very randy, horny, or anything like that, and you're just not interested these days until you have some kind of reasonable frame of mind inside the house. You know, that the tone is set so that you know, maybe some romance, you know, or something like that can happen. And, you know, we're going to talk about that one of these weeks, you know, like a romance medicine chest. It might sound crazy, but there are a lot of things you can do to up the game in your house and to make things a lot sweeter and nicer. You know, it might not get you to the bed rocking, you know, rocking big event, you know, that you might be fantasizing about, or that, you know, maybe you've long since just, it hasn't happened so long that you don't remember how to do it. There are a lot of people like that, and
Yeah.
they must kind of, that's what this is their life. That's what they've set into it. Um, it's not the time to have, you know, the knockdown, drag out fights. This is a thing where this is the time to listen. You've invited your, you know, spouse or your significant other, whatever, to a conversation, a reciprocal conversation where you're each going to tell each other something that the other person could do that would make your life a lot better. It's the time, you know, to put those ears to work, listen, leave the blame and the accusations. You know, there's temptation we have to all of a sudden, you know, it's almost like, you know, like the train track switcher. You know, we're going all night. All of a sudden, it switches into, and I'm so sick of your, you know, the stuff that you do.
Right.
And you did this to me last week, and then all of a sudden you can forget about it. It's over, and you know, your relationship basically dissolves into the TV. You know,
And you bring up actually a good point. When you're trying to talk something out and then somebody brings up that laundry list of the past, that's when you know that the communication or any kind of constructive communication that you could have has been shut down. And in this case, you can walk away. What do you think, Zev?
I mean, I think, you know, it goes back to something I've said here before. And, you know, when people come into the office, you know, and you tell me something, you know, what's your complaint? What would you like to see in your relationship? If your relationship was the relationship that you really want to have, what would it look like? And, you know, what would it be? And all of a sudden they reach in their pocket and they take out a list of 300 things, you know, that, you know, you can't possibly attend to 300 things or
No,
300 complaints.
that's not humanly possible.
It's understandable.
It
You know,
is. It is understandable.
I mean, you were talking about accumulation. We're talking about accumulating, you know, just like it's rat packing, basically bad feelings. You know, it's just like a, you know, it's like a pack rat. You're accumulating bad points, and sooner or later they're going to come out the side of your neck or somewhere else. But the best thing that can happen when, you know, like this weekend, let's say this weekend you decide to have this, you invite your spouse, hey, let's go take a walk. You know, maybe the weather's changed. I don't know. The weather's kind of dicey all over the country. You know, here it's really nice in Washington, D.C. today, but, you know, it's going to be below freezing next week. It's crazy.
Really?
80-20. I mean, it's kind of
Really?
it's a little, yeah, it's a little strange,
Huh.
but discuss how you can get yourselves out of the ditch, um, just by saying one reciprocal thing. When your spouse knows that you heard them, just that little simple, then you go back to your TV show. You can just say, I'm going to devote, I'm going to listen, even though I don't want to. I'm so pissed at her. I'm so pissed at him. I don't want to do anything for them. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, listen, hear it. Windows can open from those kinds of things. A person goes away saying, tell them what they told you. So what you're saying is that you'd like to see me do dot 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 dot. Oh my goodness gracious! If you do that, that already opened the window. Person goes away feeling pretty good that they took the time to try to invest in the relationship that you guys have, or that you might not have if you don't do something.
Well,
Um,
you made your spouse feel understood when you're able to tell them exactly what it is you've heard and they feel that they've been heard. That's a very powerful thing.
Yeah, and straight up, and I can say it in pretty straight up, regular street terms. Basically, you started moving this log jam shit show, of your relationship into an upward spiral. You know, you're heading this way instead of this way or this way. You're heading up, and the person goes away feeling like they accomplished something, that it was worthwhile, that they accomplished it, and that you heard it. And if you further reinforce it, and remember, 5 minutes, we're not talking about 5 hours, we're not talking about 1 hour. 5 minutes, you tell them, oh, you know that thing we talked about the other day? Uh, Here's what I'm going to do. Does this sound good to you? Already things are better. Doesn't mean that, you're, like love is blooming everywhere and that you're just so
Right.
happy and content with each other. You still might be pissed about 100,000 things that you're still angry about, but something changed because you made that happen. You made the change and you made it happen. And this is not impossible. And it's something that you can do. Anything else, Sarah?
Yeah, this makes me think of an interesting construct that Esther Perel brought up on one of her posts on LinkedIn last week. Have you heard her talk about how some people will have 4 marriages in one lifetime?
Yes.
That's one of her common phrases. And she's really referring to herself because she's been married to the same person for, I believe, 40 years. I believe she posted that last week on LinkedIn. And she's had 4 marriages with one person. That doesn't mean that she's been married and divorced to the same person 4 times. It means they've had to reinvent their marriage on 4 different occasions, and they've been successful at it. And so when you start the communication, right, when you open up this communication window to something that's positive and to understanding your spouse, then you can literally reinvent an entirely new relationship with the same person.
So an incredibly rational and important way to frame a long haul relationship. I've been married 43 years. I understand what Esther Perel's saying,
Yes.
and it requires effort, and sometimes we're just out of effort. We're just too tired or we're just too angry. Um, Make the effort. You're already in this relationship. You're still together. Perhaps improve it a little bit. Improve your life a little bit. Not miracles. No, I don't think anybody here is talking about miracles. Zev is not talking about miracles. Zev is talking about action. He's talking about conversation. We're talking about making a choice. We're talking about not sitting in a pity puddle and thinking that the world's against you. You have to speak up. You have to speak up. Just like if you're, in a case of serious abuse, you have to speak up outside of it, and you got to get out of it. You can't just, it gets worse and worse. The more you take it, the more it gets doled out. If you don't And today's topic was draw a line in the sand. You got to, or else it will overtake you. And
And sometimes you have to keep drawing constant lines in the sand. Not just once, you have to keep redrawing that line when a wave of anger comes and washes over it.
so try to do it in a positive way and try to be friendly about it and be invitational. Ask, even write a little note, a little friendly little post-it, that's an invitation. I'm inviting you to this. And hey, here's what I'd like to do today. Just talk about one thing, and there's something that's really bothering me. I'd love to hear if there's anything that's bothering you. Hey, try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I mean, that's a whole hell of a lot better than doing nothing. So anyway, we're here twice a week. And Sarah and I are we work with relationships for a long time. Sarah on the infidelity side, me on the relationship repair side. And Sarah and I wrote a book. And the book is Discover Your Amazing Edge.
Yep.
Because we jumped out, because in our work with relationships, we know about people's challenges and what they're trying to overcome. So we wrote a book about that, Discover Your Amazing Edge, because deep down, whether it be a relationship issue or whether it be a professional issue or whatever, deep down, you have power on board. You don't have to necessarily rely on anybody else, but you have to find the power source and you have to connect to the grid. When you do, your life will change. So give the book a read. You can get it on Amazon. It's on hardback, it's in soft cover, and it's on Kindle. And we're here on Tuesdays where we deal with issues about finding your edge. So whether it's a relationship issue or a personal development issue, we're looking to try to give you what we have and offer it to you. And again, shoot us comments. Tell us what's going on. We'll be here, and we look forward to being here. And there's an ebook on the way, by the way, in relationships. We'll be offering that very soon. It's about 38 pages of positive stuff. You can take what's on one page or one line. It's chock full of ideas for you to improve your relationship. Contact us for a chat. Happy to do that. We can set it up. DM us. We're also working on a lot of other things, and you'll be hearing about it. And anything else, Sarah?
I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in today. We appreciate you so very much, and thank you for showing up for our show, because we really are here for you. That's our reason.
Exactly. So do something for yourself and speak up for yourself and be for yourself, because in the end, nobody's going to be for yourself more than you. And we just want to help enrich your ability to be able to do that. So have a good week. Have a good weekend. Try some of these things out. You want to send us a comment that it didn't work out and then you got yelled at, and then you can yell at us. Well, go ahead, because we're thick-skinned. We've been around this area for a long time. And have a great weekend. And we'll see you on Tuesday on the Your Amazing Edge podcast personal development track. So we'll see you then. Till then,
Thumbs up.
happy weekend.